Hello, everybody, and welcome into Perspectives, continuing the home edition. We're taping this on the 12th of November. And before I introduce our first guest, I wanted to chat with you just for a moment because we are in a very precarious situation here in Oklahoma, as is the rest of the country. We are in the midst of what they call a humanitarian meltdown. The coronavirus has hit with such a force and has swept so rapidly across these United States that Oklahoma is now considered by the federal government to be a red zone, except for 2 counties. Now, I want to stop here just for a minute. Do you remember back when the governor of Oklahoma decided to take on the Indians, and I jokingly referred to him as General Armstrong Custer? Remember that? And I made the prediction then that the lawsuits he'd filed against the tribes over the gaming revenues wouldn't go anywhere. When it turned out I was right, well, he didn't learn, because now he's refusing to issue a mandate on wearing a mask, saying it should be a personal choice, that we should want to do the right thing. If that were the case, if Oklahomans needed to make a personal choice and do the right thing, we would have no need for the police and sheriff's offices. Here's my point. He needs to get down off that political high horse and issue a mandate for the state of Oklahoma. It's not just enough to call for us to do the right thing. We need a governor to show real leadership here, to step up to the plate, take the bull by the horns and say, put on the mask and I'm issuing a mandate. It's going to be tough. There are those out there who see wearing a mask and a mandate to go with it as some sort of political statement. It's not a political statement. You're saving lives. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here. As recently as Tuesday, the governor said he wouldn't issue that mandate, said it should be a personal responsibility. However, according to Washington, D.C.'s latest figures and the state of Oklahoma, their weekly report continues to demonstrate the success of mask wearing, if you will, by municipal governments and the endorsement of said mask wearing. COVID-19 cases in cities with the mask ordinance increased only 34%. Only 34% from August 1st to November 1st, compared to 109% for the rest of Oklahoma, which is not covered by a mandate. So you see, we need somebody to step up, man up, tighten your belt, and say, come on, here's the mandate, put on the mask. If not, you're going to see the next thing's going to happen is they're going to start closing businesses, and you know what that will do. So I'm urging the governor of Oklahoma to step up, issue a mandate, and let's all get on the same bandwagon. Now, having gotten that off my list of to-do things, let me kind of relax a little bit and introduce you to our first interview. This is an important one. Katie Dale. Katie, it's good to have you with us.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Sorry, I had to get on my high horse and preach a little bit.
I wear my mask. I hear you.
Okay. Now, Katie is with the Red Dirt Relief Fund, which does what, Katie?
So we're a nonprofit that tries to take care of musicians and other people who work in the music industry during times of crisis. So traditionally, that means providing financial assistance if someone has a medical emergency or an accident or some other reason that they can't work making music in our community all around the state of Oklahoma.
You know, I think folk would be amazed to learn there's more to being a musician than just tooting a horn. It takes not only talent, it takes practice, it takes ability, it takes drive, it takes creativity, and not just anybody can do it. And we have so many gifted musicians living in our state who need our help and need our support. And I'm glad to hear about this. When did you put the organization together?
So we started it in 2012, and it started with a community really of musicians working around a festival in Stillwater, and that's why we called it the Red Dirt Relief Fund. It was really it grew out of the red dirt music movement or that genre. But it wasn't very long before we realized we would certainly, to do justice to the organization and what our goals were, that we would have to extend it to include any person that's working in music, and not even just artists, but people who work in production or management, or the technical individuals who are running sound and taking care of instruments, and that it would include any genre in the state.
Well, it is a wonderful thing that you're behind, and I salute you for it. I spoke just this morning with a very dear friend of mine who is a drummer and has been for many years in this part of the country, and told him that you were going to be on and what you represented. He said, "Man, where have they been all my life?" But he said, especially now, he said, there are no jobs available right now. And he's classically trained, plays though other venues as well. And I know for a fact, if you just took the symphonies, the ensembles that exist out there, the different bands that play, local gigs, and I mean, you're talking a lot of numbers here.
Yes, and you're so right about this year. It's a particularly rough time in the industry because, starting in March, so many basically touring completely stopped. All the shows that were on the books were canceled because there was so much uncertainty about getting groups of people together at all, and we know that really that will continue. So that's Red Dirt Relief Fund launched a grant program for COVID-19 affected musicians that were out of work. And it was really overwhelming, the response that we got from members of the symphony and Philharmonic and worship musicians, people that make music in churches. You kind of forget how much music is being made around you all the time. And since March, we have granted $145,000 to 580 people working in music in Oklahoma. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg, I think.
That's just the beginning. You're going to, as you well know, you're going to get more calls.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to drum up financial contributions, if you will?
Well, we're really fortunate that since the beginning, we have been pretty well supported just by individual donors. But as this particular instance has grown, the need for help has grown because of COVID. We've also had the support of some really generous foundations like the George Kaiser Family Foundation, the Kirkpatrick Foundation, the Bovard Family Foundation, are helping us to get this funding in the pockets of people who need to pay rent and pay their bills and feed their families while they're out of work. And we also put together a couple of fundraising music festivals a year, one in Stillwater in the spring and one in Tulsa in the fall. And those both this year both had to be virtual. So that kind of limits the scope of what we're able to do in terms of fundraising. But we were still able to raise over $10,000 at both of those festivals. So we just keep trying to do everything we can to collect funds and get them like I said, in the pockets of people who need the money.
I have long maintained that Oklahoma has a history that's so rich in so many different areas. I mean, if you go just to music, Oklahoma, Tulsa, if you will, was a stopping off point, not just for the Underground Railroad, child, but also for jazz, which came upstream, if you will, from New Orleans and then went back downstream from Kansas City and St. Louis. And some of the folks decided to stay. We've had writers, we've had musicians, we have singers, you name it, they're here. And we have so many within our borders, and they've given so much to us. And this is the time now for us to turn around and say, hey, come here. You need a little help? I know just the place.
Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned the diverse and really how fortunate we are to have all of these music makers in our state. I was on a Zoom call earlier today with Scott Booker, who manages the band The Flaming Lips, and they're about to announce the first concert in Space Bubbles, where you'll be able to buy a seat inside a bubble in the venue in order to try
Okay.
to keep everyone safe. And they're all in bubbles on stage. And the photos from the video they made to kind of promote this idea has gone around the world. It was on Good Morning America. I mean, the creativity of our artist community is really something to be proud of.
I know that we have some musicians who live here rather quietly who are nationally, internationally known. We also have writers of the same venue. And it's always intriguing to me to see the inventiveness of these folk spill over into other areas.
Hmm.
Uh, I know that a number of them have taken on other roles, other jobs, just to make ends meet. But they're not doing what they're trained to do. Imagine that if that person were a doctor or an attorney or whatever. Now, there are folks out there going to say, well, they're just horn players. No, 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 that's not what you're talking about here. We have so many that are so well trained and so many who really had no formal training who give naturally. It's worth investigating if you're not aware of it.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing that I've learned in working with musicians, because I'm not myself a musician, just a music fan. I went to college in New Orleans, and I know the traditions you speak of fairly well. And but the thing about people who make a living or work in music, it's like they don't really know how else to do life. They have this gift and they want to give it. So it is really important that we try to support them however we can through this, so that when we all are able to get together again and celebrate, we have music at that party.
I got to share one quick memory with you, then I got some more questions to ask you. But back in the 60s, when Al Hurt and Pete Fountain were still alive, I was in New Orleans, and I had the opportunity to watch Pete Fountain walk from his restaurant over to join Al Hurt for a 2 hour session. And the next night, Al Hurt walked over to Pete Fountain's club for a 2 hour session. My little heart went pity pat because
I
I heard
bet.
both, went both. I heard both sessions. What a trip. Okay, let's talk about how folk who might want to contribute a nickel, a dime, a quarter, a dollar, how do they do it?
Yeah, it's really easy to give online on our website, which is reddirtrelieffund.org. There's a donate button. It's on every page. It's hard to miss. And our address is also there if someone wanted to send a check. But there are other things you can do, like Amazon Smile is their website. If you shop on Amazon and you shop through Amazon Smile and select Red Dirt Relief Fund as your charity of choice, then they give a percentage of whatever you spend to us. Also, if you're on Facebook, this has been something that we kind of discovered this year. Facebook doesn't charge any fees to if you give a donation through Facebook, so we get 100%. But also, you can donate your birthday. And so that's been something interesting that's happened this year. Is lots of people have said for my birthday, support Red Dirt Relief Fund, and that has really helped us just keep the funds rolling in.
I heard a story the other day that a group of musicians, three or four, showed up at St. Francis in the parking lot and started to play for the caregivers. And it just went over big time. And I'm told it's going to happen at St. John as well.
Well, as I said, it's in any time you spend time with musicians, you get to know that it is the gift that they have, and they will give freely. And that's just another example of the true heart of what we're talking about here.
Give us the name again of your organization, because I know our producer director, Emily Spivey, is going to put a super up where you can read it, but we'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, so it's the Red Dirt Relief Fund, and you can find us on all the social media or on our website.
Easy to track down, easy to get to, and easy, super easy to navigate, right?
Absolutely.
Becky, thank you. And thank you for what you're doing. Got a lot of folks out there depending on you and looking to you for guidance along the way. And I will tell any musician out there that hears about this, please, if you got ideas, share them with Becky because she's in a position to make things happen. Becky, thank you.
Absolutely. I'm here to help.
You're good people, and we'll have you on again.
Thank you.
Short break. We'll be back with more right after this.